Looking at the numbers of child labor in Nigeria, it's not pleasant. We have 24 million children involved, according to the NBS, that's the National Bureau of Statistics, and then 14.3 million engaged in hazardous work. Now, you see children below the ages of 15 engaged in mining, artisanal kind of work, and which is nothing to write home about. And in 2019, if you recall, it's just 3 or less than 4 years from now, 8.7 million children are engaged in one labor or the other. Now, just given a gap of 4 years, and we're not seeing the numbers decrease, rather we're seeing the numbers increase. Now, let's look at actually the states, we have like 10 states who are top in the chart, but we'll just give you 5 top states, who are already on the chart. We have Cross River, 67.4%. Now, note that this states, whatever child labor, it's peculiar. The indices are peculiar to each state, and that's why we have these numbers here. Yobe State, 62.6%. Abia is having 60.1%. Plateau, 58.9%. And Taraba, 58.6%. Akwa Ibom is also on that chart. Ebonyi is also on that chart. It's quite appalling that, children are engaged in different kind of apprenticeship, or you want to name it. And there are different causes actually to this norm. Let's look at the causes, according to the dynamics of this child labor. Poverty, we hear, is one of it, and of course the cultural number. But just before we get to that, yes, that's it, poverty, and then lack of education. Poverty, a lot of people who maybe have lost their parents or are living in one form of rural communities or the other, and you find them, not being able to go to school. So the only means of survival, because they're trapped in poverty, they get to engage in different kinds of labor. And then lack of education, of course, this part normally affects the girl child, but the boy child is also not left out in this trajectory. And the cultural norms, some cultures believe that you can't have a child go to school, but rather should engage in one form of apprenticeship or the other. And it's quite sad, Jumai, to see that children below the ages of 10 are also being taken, to go and learn apprenticeship. Now, let's go back to the demographic we saw earlier. Now, this is a breakdown, 5 to 17 years. We have 62 million children in Nigeria, looking at the population. Now, 30.3% of that population, that's the 62.9 million children we're seeing there. Then you have the rural areas and the urban areas. Now, the urban centers are also not left out. This doesn't just happen in the rural communities, because we're seeing the numbers, 62.4% in rural areas, and then 37.6% in these rural areas. There's been intervention from the federal government and, of course, development partners. Let's look at the policy interventions. Now, the Child Rights Act of 2003, it's been 18 years since the Child Rights Act was, passed into law. And we hear only 24 states out of the 36 states have adopted, or rather domesticated, this act. Then we have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which nations are signatory to this convention. Now, what does it entail? Just protect the rights of the child. It's a multifaceted approach. Now, most of these children cannot speak for themselves. We have the Human Rights Commission, who it's on their part are doing their best to ensure the rights of everyone is being protected. But what is really touching for us, Jumai, is that the child should be protected. And as the world, all over continue to lend their voices on protecting the child, against hard labors of such, we will continue to do our parts here by looking at the numbers, and we don't want to see the numbers go high, but rather come down. And let's hope that interventions from those, authorities involved do the needful so that these children, their rights can be protected and taken off the street and taken off those hard labor, Jumai.